Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the showdown between the Dark Elves led by the CRONE and the High Elves who are going to be led by Alariel the Radiant atop her mighty Pigeon. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So in the front line, I do have mostly heavy infantry. In total, I do have two groups of standard Hargoneth Executioners, and then in the center, I do have the Blades of the Blood Queen, which go really well with the CRONE. So typically when she's on her chariot here, she's going to be in the infantry line fighting, and she is a pretty big target. So she's going to be taking missile fire, damage from enemy lords, all kinds of fun stuff. So having these guys with the Guardian to give her that 18% physical resist is definitely very nice. Granted, it's not as useful in the high elf matchup simply because they have a lot of magic damage. So one of the main sources of damage that's going to really be pouring into the CRONE is going to be the Sisters of Averlorn, who do of course do magic damage. So the Guardian isn't going to help there, but versus like infantry and spears and Phoenix Guard and all that kind of stuff, it's still really good. So we do have the Blades of the Blood Queen here. We have the CRONE on her altar, which is a little bit risky because, again, she's a huge target. She doesn't have the highest HP pool, and the Sisters of Avalorn can take her down really quick, but she does have decent missile resist of 25%, and she does also have 47% magic resist. So against the Sisters of Avalorn, she's going to be mitigating their damage pretty heavily. And the reason she does have such high magic resist is because of this item, so the Amulet of Dark Fire. And I definitely recommend bringing it in this matchup. It's very useful, and of course, it does give nearby troops magic resist. So if there's some witchcraft or anything else coming from the High Elves there, it's going to be pretty good. So we do have the CRONE here. Hopefully, she doesn't die terribly quickly. On the flanks, two Blackheart Corsairs to go up and around, and they're pretty fast. They have 40 speed, so they can outmaneuver spears in standard High Elf infantry who have speed in the low 30s. So I definitely like them quite a bit. Most people do defend their flanks with spears, so the Blackheart Corsairs are going to be pretty strong against those guys. So three groups of Dread Spears in total, 1, 2, 3 here. I have one on kind of each formation, just in case there was rear charges from Dragon Princes, Silver Helms, that kind of stuff. We do have a Shadowcaster, which is very, very good against the High Elves. And the reason it's so good is because of Pendulum. So Pendulum is very good against Sisters of Averlorn or Spear lines, and High Elves tend to spaghetti quite a bit with both their archers as well as their infantry. So the Shadowcaster is very, very good there. So we do have Melkoth's as well as Enfeebling Foe. And guys, we're bringing the CRONE. So this is another risky pick, but again, if they are not able to focus it down and you can disrupt their archers, this thing can be devastating. It's going to it could potentially tear out some of those infantry, but it lowers leadership by 8, and it's a very good answer against Dragon Princes and Silver Helms and enemy dragons and that kind of stuff. So we do have the Mighty CRONE here. And I do have two pretty big targets, right? I have CRONE, and then I also do have the CRONE, so he's going to have to kind of pick his poison here. And that's pretty much it for my army. For my opponent, he has a pretty elite front line, Swordmasters of Hoeth and the Puremain Company here, who are going to provide Guardian, but mainly probably just there for their combat stats. Two Spearmen on the flanks, two Sisters of Averlorn, also Lothern Seaguard on the outsides of the formation, which I like quite a bit because, again, if I try and come in there with like Cav or Doomfire Warlocks or anything else like that, they're going to have their anti-large and charge defense. So good stuff for my opponent. Two Spearmen, Silver Helms in the back, Alariel up on our Pigeon with Earthblood, Tempest, and looks like Frost Protection. Yeah, we're in for a rumble here, guys. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. So right now, advancing a little bit, and I will fast forward as this is a pretty long battle here. So we're going to fast forward on the advance. But as soon as I get in range, the Sisters of Avalorn are going to start unleashing hell. You can see they scoot forward, and the first volleys are coming into my Blades of the Blood Queen. So very good targeting from my opponent there, focusing on those high-value targets. The other one is shooting into Blackheart Corsairs, or those are actually the Lothern Seaguard. So that's not going to do a whole lot against me. But now the fire's starting to pour in. The Blades of the Blood Queen getting hit. The CRONE, despite her massive resistance against their attacks, is still taking some okay damage. So I was a little bit nervous. I was like, oh man. He does feign a charge with the Silver Helm, so I pull my spears forward and my Corsairs back. And the CRONE, I was hiding it in the forest to make sure it doesn't take initial damage. But here comes the first Pendulum. So right into the Sisters here. It's going to be hitting them, as well as the other group. So again, if you're playing High Elves and you see Lore of Shadows, I would recommend kind of staggering your formation because it's super punishing. So the Sisters take a ton of damage. They don't lose a lot of models though, so they're potentially still going to be pretty optimal. And I do use the Gaze of Cain because you can see the CRONE is just taking a ton of damage. So I decided to charge her in, just go in. I'm like, I'm going to do as much damage as I can, try and ravage his formation here. And you can see the Sisters of Averlorn are taking some work. Alariel does charge in, so pretty rough start for the CRONE, but I still think, I should have kept her in the front line there, but I wanted to shut down the missile, so there was some, kind of a, dual thought going on there. But the Blackheart Corsairs doing very well against the Spears, so they'll get through the Spears relatively quickly, hopefully opening up the pocket to those Lothern Seaguard here. And you can see they're taking no damage and half chopped down the Spearmen. Hargoneth Executioners trading pretty well with these Swordmasters of Hoeth. Actually very even, so I'm not sure why they're winning that, but because normally the Swordmasters do win. But in the center, the Gaze of Cain has just made it a massacre. The Puremain Company got pounded, the other Swordmasters got pounded because CRONE did ride through them as well. So because of the CRONE and her buffs, we were able to really just smash the front line. But again, she is taking a ton of damage, and my opponent's Lord is full health. The CRONE over here has engaged with the Silver Helm, so pretty good cycle charging for my opponent here, was able to get in there. But the CRONE did fend them off at the very least, and it's going to probably hopefully tear out some of these spears here. But I do not want it fighting these spears. That is a very, very rough engagement. So the Crone still taking a ton of damage, good charge, but another Pendulum coming in there, just wrecking those Sisters of Avalorn. So his very expensive back line of archers is pretty much decimated. I mean, 31 here, he does have 50 here, so that's still some firepower. And the Lothran Seaguard also took that Pendulum, and you can see I did just massacre that frontline engagement. So yes, my Crone is probably going to die here with 250 HP, but on that same note, like, I destroyed that frontline engagement. So the bounce power, as it currently stands, is still in my favor, but I am down a Lord. So now my opponent kind of creeping back towards the middle here. So my spears, as well as my Shadowcaster, are going to go after Alariel. And you can see now it's kind of become a chase. So my KHARIBDYSS and my Blackheart Corsairs and my Hargoneth Executioners, who are all very healthy. Blades of the Blood Queen are rocking 48 models. We have 58 on these Hargoneth. We're kind of just chasing. So now it's going to become a little bit of a kiting game as the KHARIBDYSS and company are terror routing these Lothran Seaguard. And yeah, so basically I lost my Lord, but at that same, on that same note, I was able to gain a ton of value in the back line with those Pendulums and also smash his front line with the initial Gaze of Cain and some of that other stuff. But now he's able to kite, so you can see he's going to be using his Cav as well as Alariel to kind of, use the Star of Avalorn, but that one didn't really generate much value there. But still, he's going to be able to scoot and shoot a little bit, so as his Cav hold me in place, he's going to turn and shoot, and you can see I'm taking a little bit of damage on my Hargoneth here, and the Blades of the Blood Queen are going to be charging. So this all of a sudden becomes a very, very kitey game. So we'll fast forward here. You can see that the KHARIBDYSS is just kind of chasing. He is going to be sending in the Pyramid Company, so the KHARIBDYSS is not going to have any of their shit. And, they're already a little bit low, and of course he does have that Abyssal Scream, and oh man, look at that. That is some disturbing, Lovecraftian stuff going on there. So we're able to get some work right on that Pyramid Company. You can see their leadership is down to 26, so they'll probably last a couple of seconds, because again, the Hargoneth Executioners are nearby, and these are no mere Hargoneth Executioners. These are the Blades of the Blood Queen. So rocking 47 models here. The Blackheart Corsair is very good for chasing down archers, but my opponent using his Cav to kind of try and hold me in place. But the mighty KHARIBDYSS is very healthy, and he used all of his resources to basically shut down the Crone Hellebron, so that left this guy alive. So arguably, I think he did make the right decision there, killing the Crone Hellebron, because the KHARIBDYSS is definitely easier to kill. Over here, you can see that the Alariel is going after the Sorceress with Shadows, and she's not a pushover in melee, so with some good cycle charging, should be able to do well. The Swordmasters of Hoeth are fighting the Blades of the Blood Queen, but the Blades of the Blood Queen are one of the best infantry units in the game in terms of stats. I'm pretty sure they beat Chosen with Great Weapons and are like the only infantry that can actually do that. I'm not sure, maybe the Pete Gateguard, but I'm pretty sure the Blades of the Blood Queen are the only ones. So they're going to be chasing forward here with their 64 melee attack from the Murderous Mastery, which is absolutely insane. Balance of power is pretty much in my favor, but again, my opponent has kind of made a new battle line here, and he's getting huge focus fire on the KHARIBDYSS, so very well played there. Probably did about 1,500, 2,000 damage. And he's just going to charge with the Silver Helms, not because they're going to win, but because they're slowing me down and buying some time. He's also using Alariel to try and pick off some of these Hargoneth Executioners, but again, he is taking casualties. Every time they get in there, they're chopping down some of these Sisters with their heavy anti-infantry bonus and just kind of a badass stats overall. So good stuff there, but Alariel is kind of a menace, isolating my Sorceress. It looks like he might go after the Sorceress, but it looks like there's a Melkoth going down for my Shadowcaster, just trying to wear those guys down. In the back, we do have a couple fights as well. Some of the Spearmen are fighting. Yeah, so it's just a wet noodle contest. The Dread Spears versus the Spearmen. Who's going to win here? But yeah, I think once the martial prowess goes from these guys, I'm pretty sure the Dread Spears will win in prolonged combat. So that should definitely favor me here, but it looks like he is going to win on that side. The KHARIBDYSS, in the meantime, getting a pretty good engagement, tossing up a Sister of Avalorn and sending her into the Abyssal Maw right there. The Shadowcaster getting a decent rear charge on Alariel the Radiant, but we're just trying to chase down these Sisters because they're just causing such problems. Blackheart Corsairs with their 40 speed, very efficient at hunting down the Lothran, but Lothran Seaguard actually have 36 speed, so they're not as slow as regular infantry, which is pretty cool. But right now, a little kiting, so we'll fast forward. Alariel just picking off targets, but every time Alariel lands, I do my best to hit it with the Shadowcaster, but he's doing a good job. He's kind of kiting and fighting. The bounce power is certainly shifting in my favor a little bit at this point, and we are able to munch down most of the archers and form a bit of a Death Star. So what my opponent will probably do now is get Alariel go over here and try and win these two engagements to see if he can get kind of a rallying situation. Because maybe with the Heart of Avalorn, he's going to be able to get his Spearmen, heal them up, pull the bounce a little bit back towards the middle, and maybe make a final stand. But I think it's going to be a tall order because Blades of the Blood Queen are here. The KHARIBDYSS is healthy. Hargoneth Executioners are tanky. They're rocking 100 armor, and I don't know if he's going to have enough AP. Alariel could cycle charge, but he doesn't have any DPS spells there, so I'm a little bit concerned. But over here, I do try and chase down these Lothran Seaguard, but surprisingly, they're able to fend off my Blackheart Corsairs. I do get a Melkoth. I'm like, just break off the battlefield, just go. And I assumed that would break them, but I didn't want to charge into their anti-large. But I saw them wavering, so I go in there, and it's just going to be full Velociraptor as this Sorceress fights. And I think we actually do break them right here. You can see there's some arrows in her head, but she's still going. She's got that magic going on. We do break them off, but he does have a couple archers, sisters over here. Looks like these ones are shattered. These ones are shattered as well. And in the meantime, the rest of my force is kind of pushing, and you can see Alarielle was able to come in, break the Corsairs, as well as my Dread Spears here, and form a second battle line. So this is going to be quite a finale here. You can see the bounce power is kind of teetering in my favor, going back and forth a little bit as Alarielle does kind of cycle charge troops. And obviously the CRONE can't keep up with her. It only has 46 speed, I think. Yeah, 46 speed compared to her 110. So she can kind of cycle charge with impunity. So my opponent, he's going to be running with his Spearmen and just trying to cycle charge and get as much value as he can. Wait for that Earthblood to go off there. And you can see the Earthblood does go off. But my Shadowcaster is coming back a little bit exposed to Alarielle. So I do pull in the CRONE. And he is going to charge, I think. But again, if he does charge at the wrong angle, the CRONE is just going to get a fat, angry charge. So the Pigeon is definitely going to have to turn and run. So basically, at this point, I just wanted to get rid of his Spearmen, make sure that, you know, he's going to be suffering a penalty for just sitting in the air and cycle charging. So my Shadowcaster is going to be chasing. The CRONE and company are just going to be kind of sticking together. So I knew that my main force here could just basically stomp him out. He gets an Earthblood. You can see the Hargoneth Executioners coming in as well. So there's going to be a final stand of the High Elves. But I do get my Dread Spears up and around the flank. Star of Avalorn going down, but really they're not going to be able to hold, as I am doing a wraparound with these Dread Spears, and it's going to break their leadership pretty easily. So the bounce power pretty heavily in my favor at this point. I don't think my opponent really has a chance, but he's still trying to snipe out my caster here. But the CRONE gets a huge blow on Alarielle as she does come in. And yeah, let's see, he might still try and, you know, cycle charge and kill my Shadowcaster, but the bounce is pretty heavily in my favor at this point. So here he comes. The Pigeon is ready. But yeah, I think he had some Lothern Seaguard over there, so I just had to go finish. I wasn't sure if he was going to like draw kite me or anything, but I don't think he was going to. Anyways, the Pigeon is looking for an opportunity. We're basically just chasing down all the Spearmen to make sure he suffers the leadership penalty for sitting up in the sky for too long. And the Pigeonator is going to go in for the Shadowcaster, but that was risky because, again, the Sorcerer does have the CRONE right next to it. So the CRONE turns around, gets a massive attack, we enfeebling foe, we charge, and that's going to be army losses for the High Elves. So man, that was an intense one. I mean, I was a little bit stressed out when I did lose the CRONE Hellebron very early, but I was kind of expecting that, just hoping her initial shock from the Gaze of Cain and the damage coming in would, you know, be enough to punish the High Elf front line. But really, I think the determining factor for our victory there was the Pendulum. So the Pendulums just ravaged that back line, and I really think without those good Pendulums, we might have lost that game for sure. But the Elite Infantry did well, 120, 92, 137. Corsairs were really good on the flanks, and I really think that's where they're going to shine with their armor. And the CRONE did well. CRONE Hellebron did solid, but again, I think the Shadowcaster was the MVP there. And for my opponent's army, I definitely liked it. Pyramid Company is something I just don't like in general, but aside from that, I thought it was pretty decent. I would have liked to have maybe seen like some Dragon Princes or something, but yeah, it was a cool army for sure. The Sisters did their job. The Lothern Seaguard defended the flanks, and really the front line just got smashed so quickly that it really put him in a hard position where he had to like kind of kite and fight. So very well played to my opponent, Cool Bean. Look forward to running into you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this Dark Elf game. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.